بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Oh, no, my phone. Is it my phone? Oh yeah, it might be still on that microphone. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له الملك الحق المبين وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله سيد ولد آدم أجمعين وصلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين على مر الأيام والليالي والشهور والسنين أما بعد. As we continue in this tremendous treatise by the great Imam Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani rahimahullah, the one who died 386 after the migration of our Prophet ﷺ, who lived in al-Qarn al-Rabi'. He lived in the 4th century, and the great A'imma who catered towards the madhab al-Imam Malik. You'll find, like we mentioned in this tremendous treatise, when in actuality it was a muqaddimah, it was an introduction to a book that he catered towards, a mawsu'a, an encyclopedia of fiqh. But you'll find that the ulama, as we mentioned, that they looked at this treatise, or they looked at the introduction rather, and found that it was very beneficial in how it established the creed of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and those who traversed the path of the Messenger of Allah, number one, and his companions, and holding on to that belief. And you'll find as we studied this book that it's exactly how the ulama described it. It's in accordance to what is the correct creed. There's a binding upon every Muslim to believe in and hold firm and steadfast with their mullah teeth. So the time now is 7:35 p.m., Thursday, September the 25th, 2025, of التاريخ الميلادي أو الموافق للتاريخ الإسلامي الهجري. الآن وصلنا إلى ليلة 4 من شهر ربيع الثاني في ليلة الخميس عام 1447 بعد هجرة المصطفى عليه الصلاة والسلام. As the time now, or excuse me, the date in accordance with the Islamic date was currently the 4th Rabi' al-Thani. This night technically, and I said Khamis, I meant to say Jumu'ah, technically is Friday evening, the year 1447, after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. As we covered the various topics in regards to the belief of affairs that are considered belief of the unseen. And number one is from what takes place in the barzakh. When we talked about the middle life in the Arabic language is called al-barzakh. And we said when we mentioned the word middle life, that it is the life in the grave, meaning when a person departs from this life that we know in front of us now, and they entered upon another life. And that life is of the grave, which is the middle life between the final abode, which is the day of resurrection, and those two, one of those two dwelling places that one of the human beings will go. And we ask Allah to make us from the inhabitants of paradise. But notice that the life of the grave it's in the middle. It's directly in the middle, and that's why they consider it, or why they call it barzakh. Al-barzakh. And like we mentioned, it is like the middle of between two, like we said, affairs, or two areas, and even two places. And you'll find that is mentioned in the Quran, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Surah Al-Rahman. And the ayat where it says, بَيْنَهُمَا بَرْزَخٌ لَا يَبْغِيَانِ فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in his book, he said between the two seas, the one that's not salty and the one that is, that they come and they do not collide with one another because there's a barrier right in between them. And those who've been on an airplane, they've seen this. And those who, I know they have these type of videos established. So if one wants to see it, they can see it. There's a video showing that the non-salty water does not combine with the pure water or the purified water from salt, that they don't come together. And there's like a barrier right in between them. It's exactly how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned it in Surah Al-Rahman. But notice, the point of the matter is in the ayah, Surah Al-Rahman, that Allah called it a barzakh, the thing, the barrier in the middle, between the two. Allah himself used the word what? Barzakh. So that word is something known. In addition to the description of the life of the grave is similar. What they call it, al-hayatul barzakhiyah, the middle life between, like we said, the living and the final abode of the day of resurrection. So in regards to what the great Imam, he mentions, rahimahullah, he was discussing these matters and what will take place to the souls. However, what we wanted to also clarify, what Ahl Ilm mentioned, is that the body, the na'im of paradise or bliss, if you want to say, or the pleasure rather, in the grave, the na'im of al-qabr, the bliss or the pleasure of the grave, and the adhab al-qabr, and the punishment of it, that it falls upon al-ruh wal-jasad ma'an, that it falls upon the soul and the body together. If I have more details, I will go into this a little bit more, but like we mentioned, we're trying to keep this class basic as much as possible. But the details of what you'll find, even Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, he mentions this, that the pleasure of the grave or its punishment, wal-'iyadha billah, yajri ala al-ruh wal-jasad ma'an, that it is applied upon al-ruh, upon the soul and the jasad, or upon the body together. If I had some more details, we'll mention it. Also used to hear this constantly from Shaykh Abee, rahimahullah, when we used to attend his lessons, especially when I attended his lesson in Sharh al-Sunnah, that he mentioned this, rahimahullah, that the punishment of the grave or its pleasure, that it falls upon the body and the soul together. And you'll find from the Mu'tazilah that in actuality, they don't even believe in it because it's not something mahsus. You'll find that they rely upon the affair have to be tangible with the senses. That if they don't see it, if they don't feel it, or what have you, they don't believe in it. That's the reason why you'll find from the Mu'tazilah who reject the existence of magic. They don't say it exists because it's not mahsus. It's not something tangible with the senses. And for that reason, they reject it. And they try to say there's a logical excuse for all of these matters. You'll find that is from the affairs of the unseen that they reject. So regardless of what is from, what we see and don't see, that's not from our iman, that it's stipulated that it has to be mahsus, that it has to be tangible by the senses. That is from the test in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in his book of those who truly believe. That is the ikhtibar, imtihan for us, or the ibtila, to see if we will believe in something that Allah has revealed and that we stand firm upon it, even though we don't see it. So right now, if we was to go to a grave and you open it and you don't see it, does not mean that it's not happening. And that's from the affairs you'll find that some of the people al-bid'ah deny and reject. And that's what you'll find the great Imam al-Barbahari, rahimahullah, also mentioned in his Sharh al-Sunnah, saying that even if we don't see it, it's from our creed that we remain firm upon that affair is happening now, whether or not we see it or not. Or if we see it, then we reached another level. But if it's not seen, then the test is still established upon Ahlul Sunnah to see if we will believe in it. But if we see it, then of course now the affair of being a test is over now. But if the affair of what you don't see, meaning in regards to the affairs that's not seen, then that is a test which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests the human beings by to see if they will remain firm in its belief in its reality. So that's the matter that we wanted to clarify. So number one, we said that the the pleasure of the grave or its punishment falls upon, again, al-ruh wal-jasad, together, upon the soul and the body together. And it is not stipulated that we have to see it with our eyes. So we're not from those who reject it, that this matter is not mahsus, or it's not malmus, that's tangible with the senses, or has to be malmus, something we can touch and feel. That if that's not the case, that if we don't see it or cannot touch it, then we reject it, similar to how the Mu'tazila, what they say. And like we mentioned, from the principles or from the beliefs of the Mu'tazila is that they reject magic. They say it doesn't exist. Ahl Sunnah, we believe that it exists. Why? Because Allah Himself said it exists and it can affect by His permission. And we know what happened with the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, of how he was affected by what? He was affected by magic. Not in the affair of wahi though. Not in the affair of revelation. But in order to show how, if one was tested by it, of how to be cured by it, you'll find, like we mentioned, of what happened and had taken place when even Angel Jibreel alayhi salam came to the Messenger of Allah and did ruqya upon him until he became cured alayhi salatu wasalam. The matter pertaining to what we mentioned, everyone, like we said, is binding upon one to believe in these matters. And we do not listen to the different callers that say these are only fairy tales of old. It's incumbent upon us to now civilize or make ourselves more civilized. We need to now come up with the times. Those are just old fairy tales. And you'll find that the devils and the lives of the people who reject these matters are driving them insane and tearing their lives apart in regards to their societies and their countries due to their lack of belief of matters that they do not see, and it is affecting them. It's affecting their mind frame, their thought processes, the way they act, and evil. Similar to how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Maryam, أَلَمْ تَرَ أَنَّا أَرْسَلْنَا الشَّيَاطِينَ عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ تَأُزُّهُمْ أَزًّا. Do you not see that we sent the devils upon these people, upon the disbelievers, pushing them to do evil, pushing them and encouraging them to do wickedness? These are affairs that are unseen, but it's affecting them, even though they don't realize it. So those are the matters, like we mentioned, everyone, that we wanted to establish before. Again, we entered the topic that you'll find that Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani, rahimahullah, was mentioning that this matters from the matters of the unseen, that we firmly believe in and we do not reject it, no matter who says otherwise, that we remain firm and steadfast in these affairs of creed in front of those who reject it and deny it, and who try to so-called give a rational, logical explanation to say why this happened and this happened. It's because of the matters of the unseen or anything connected with it. That's absolute nonsense and that's absurd. So keep in mind, like we mentioned, we talked about the matters pertaining to the Qiyamah to Sughra. So that's another matter that we mentioned last class. So don't forget about that. We said that the Qiyamah breaks down to two categories. We said al-Qiyamah to Sughra, the minor Qiyamah, meaning the minor establishment of the day of resurrection, which is death. Then, as we mentioned, al-Qiyamah to Kubra, the major establishment of the day of resurrection, which is clear, self-explanatory. So we started with the affair pertaining to the mustaqarru al-arwah, يعني الشهداء, وأنهم أحياء عند ربهم يرزقون, that the martyrs are alive with their Lord, giving those special provisions right now, as we mentioned. And you'll find Ibn Abi Zayd, rahimahullah, that he continues to mention the creed of Ahl Sunnah, Arwahu Ahl Sa'adah, Baqiyatun Na'imatun ila Yawmi Yub'athun. We also discussed this. That we said that the souls of the people of success the souls of the people of success are remaining and giving pleasure, or being given bliss and pleasure until the day they're resurrected. And similar, or rather the opposite rather, the arwah ahl al-shaqawa mu'adhabatun ila yawm ad-din. The souls of the people of wickedness will be punished to the day of resurrection. So we all discussed those matters, and they are all from the affairs again of what everyone of the unseen. And it establishes clearly the life of the grave, and that there is a life in the grave when you die. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve us and you, because those matters are serious and they are very, very horrific in the story and very terrifying, which should be an incentive to push one to be upright in this dunya, based upon the fact of what will take place with them when they pass away. So I told them to pray downstairs. So based upon that, again, everyone, like we said, these are from the matters of the unseen, which we'll all discuss in detail as we move within these chapters. We mentioned similar last class, continuing the life of the grave, where you'll find Ibn Abi Zayd, rahimallah, that he said in the statement, وَأَنَّ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ يُفْتَنُونَ فِي قُبُورِهِمْ وَيُسْأَلُونَ. He said that the mu'mineen, they will be put to trial and test in their graves, and they will be asked. And he used the ayah, which is the Surah Ibrahim, and ayah number 27. You'll find that ayah is the Faisal and the Hakim في القضية, في قضية إثبات نعيم القبر أو عذابه. That is from the ayats, that's the Faisal and the Hakim, the deciding factor of establishing the life of the grave, whether it be a life of bliss, or a garden from the garden of paradise, or a pit from the pit of hell, wal-'iyadhu billah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in his book, in Surah Ibrahim, ayat number 27. Notice the great Imam Ibn Abi Zayd, rahimallah, if you look at your book, that he mentioned, it said, يثبت الله الذين آمنوا بالقول الثابت في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة ويضل الله الظالمين ويفعل الله ما يشاء. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in his book, these are from the ayat that establish the punishment of the grave, and there's others. But these are from the ayat that establish this fact. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in his book, he will keep firm those who believe with a firm word in this world and in the hereafter. And Allah will lead astray the zalimeen. He will lead astray the oppressors, and Allah does what he wills. That ayat you'll find, ya ma'ashar al-ikhwah, in regards to the establishment of the grave. Notice in the ayat, where's the point of reference or evidence in the ayat? If you look at your books, where is it? You will keep them with a firm word in this world and in the hereafter. Fil akhirah. Based upon that, you'll find, like we mentioned, everyone, that there are two types of matters that establish the affairs pertaining to the life of what will take place when something happens great, and everything now returns back to this specific point here. The point here is that everything that you did in this world, all is led up to this very point here, meaning the angels that are about to ask you. And as we mentioned the ayat, the angels are very stern and very horrific in how they look. You'll find in some of the narrations it says, Shadidul intihar. Shadidul intihar. That they're very stern in their appearance and in their nature. Shadidul intihar. Meaning they're very stern, they will be very stern, very horrific looking in their nature, of how they will appear to the servant in his grave. And based upon that, the servant will become very nervous. So based upon that, there has to be some form of tathbeet. There has to be some form of stability that has to be granted to the servant based upon the fact that when you see, you cannot even imagine very stern angels coming to you in a very stern looking way and very intimidating, scrutinizing you. But to the point, if you see something right now, and I'm sure that human beings in this dunya have experienced seeing something very horrific until they became slurred in their speech. They weren't able to say their words correctly of what they want to say, based upon the horrific appearance that they seen or picture that they see. So based upon that, they couldn't gather their words. How much more for the person in regards to the angels that now are investigating and scrutinizing? And even though they know, but we'll talk about that in a minute, inshallah. So based upon that, that type of horrific feeling, then the individual in the grave, he has to have some form of stability that Allah grants to the servant. And that's why it says in the ayat, Yuthabbitullah. Allah will keep firm. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will inspire the servant to say the correct words when the questions are asked. Because it comes only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He will be able to grant the servant stability when he's being scrutinized. And even certain people in these days and times, how many people before they are captured by the authorities and then they get him in a room and interrogate him and they start to sing like a bird due to the fact that they're intimidated. That's by mere human beings. How much more about the angels? That they don't feel sorry or remorse when a person dies in a state that's displeasing to Allah. Rather, they only do what Allah commands them. There's no more remorse here, and there's no going back anymore. Everything now that you did and said and believed in, especially, all leads up to this very moment. So that's the reason why a lot of people, when they hear, or some of the people, or some of the Muslims, they think that it's just easy. They will just say, oh, my religion is Allah, or my Lord is Allah, excuse me. My religion is Islam, and my prophet is the messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's it, it's good, I'm good. Easy questions. Like we mentioned, notice in the ayah, the stability and the affair of remaining firm has to come from who? Has to come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In regards to one being firm, when those questions are being asked and scrutinized by very stern looking angels and intimidating looking angels. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us stability in that moment. So based upon that, as we mentioned everyone, this is the mas'ala pertaining what they call na'im al-qabr wa adhabah wa na'imu wal-adhabu natijatu su'al. So keep in mind that this matter revolves around what the great Imam has established of aqeedah and the belief, which is, again, the belief of the bliss of the grave or its punishment. So there's different ayat, that's one of them. We'll suffice by one. But the other ayat which happened with Pharaoh, we'll talk about that last mas'ala because that's speaking about whether or not the punishment of the graves for every ummah or not. Is it only for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? What you'll find that the ulama mentioned in regards to the strongest opinion is that it is general for everyone. It's general for every ummah. Because based upon Pharaoh, right now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala established that there's a punishment being shown to him night and day. So, and he was from the ummah of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. And based upon that, the punishment was being what? Established upon him, even though he was from that ummah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us refuge. So let's quickly read the narration, the authentic sunnah, before we mention the other matters within the lesson, or the other important masail that we wanted to cover. However, the first thing is that what is the point of discussion here, everyone, is wujub al-iman bi fitnat al-qabr, the obligation of having faith in the trial of the grave. The trial of the grave. So that's the point of reference that one needs to extrapolate here in this context, is that one, or is binding upon one, to believe in the trial of the grave. The trial. The trial of the grave technically is the what? Is the questions of the malaika. And it will be a question. And then after that, it will either be bliss or be a garden from the gardens of paradise, or it will be what? A pit from the pit of hell, wal-iyadhu billah. From the authentic narrations has been collected in Imam Ahmad in his Musnad, rahimahullah, and the wording is for him, rahimahullah. You'll find extracted in other masadir of hadith. From them is Abu Dawood and his Sunan and others. You'll find, mention this quickly. You'll find that the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, and there's a lot of narrations, but this is one of them. It said, "Inna al-abd al-mu'min idha kana fi inqita'in min ad-dunya wa iqbalan min al-akhirah nazala ilayhi malaikatu min as-sama'i bidul wujuh كأن وجوههم الشمس معهم كفن من أكفان الجنة وحنوط من حنوط الجنة حتى يجلسوا منه مد البصر ثم يجيء ملك الموت عليه السلام حتى يجلس عند رأسه فيقول أيتها النفس الطيبة اخرجي إلى مغفرة من الله ورضوان قال فتخرج تسيل كما تسيل القطرة من في السقاء. So we start with this first part, then we continue. Verily, the believing servant, if he's in the state of departure from this dunya and approaching the hereafter, angels descend to him from the heavens. Also in this hadith, put here, this is a dalil that Allah is above. This is another proof that Allah is above the heavens. Because if Allah is everywhere, why do angels have to descend from above the heavens? This is another narration. This is another narration that clearly establishes that the angels was commanded to descend from where? From above. نزل إليه ملائكة من السماء بيض الوجوه, white in their faces. He says as if their faces is the sun, bright like the sun. They will have shroud from the shrouds of paradise. And hanut. Hanut, they translate as an involvement. But what is understood, it will be some form of pleasant fragrances or some type of pleasant fragrances that will be made for the body. Even though it is utilized linguistically in the Arabic language as embalmment, or that type of meaning. Hanut or hannata. Or hannata yuhannitu, which means to embalm the body. But here it's not saying it's embalmment. Rather is the good smelling fragrances from the fragrances of what? Of paradise. So they'll bring the shroud from its shrouds and those good smelling fragrances until they will sit close to him as far as the eye see. Madd al-basar. As far as the eye see. ثُمَّ يَجِيءُ مَلَكُ الْمَوْتِ. So you'll find that the angel of death, and like we mentioned from the benefits, is what, everyone? That we said, some of them say that his name is Azra'il. As we mentioned, it said that narration is what? Weak. What is the correct is what Allah called him, that from the malaika, from the junud, from the soldiers of Allah, is his angel who's called in his book, in Surah Sajda, Malakul Maut, the angel of death. The angel of death that he has a'wan, he has people that aid him from other angels. Notice it says, as far as the eyes can see, Madd al-Basar. It says, when they come, then he will come. Then the angel of death will approach until he will sit by his head or her head. And it will say, Ayyatuha an-nafsu at-tayyiba, O pleasant soul, now be removed or be taken out to the forgiveness of your Lord at his pleasure. They say that the soul فَتَخْرُجُ تَسِيلُ كَمَا تَسِيلُ الْقَطْرَةُ مِنْ فِي السِّقَاء. It says it will be removed similar to how the drop of water is removed from the scale or the skin or the skins of water or the containers that used to hold the waters. So that's how the soul will be what? Pulled out in a gentle fashion. However, the opposite, what we'll speak about, is how the people of the kafara, how it will be removed in a violent way. Wal-iyadhu billah. But in regards to the pleasant soul, it will be removed similar to how, like we said, the drop of water comes out, those water skins. Then he will take it, meaning the angel of death, فَإِذَا أَخَذَهَا لَمْ يَدَعُوهَا فِي يَدِهِ طَرْفَةَ عَيْنٍ. Then he will take it, and when he takes it, there will be others that will take it. And they will take it out of his hand fast, quickly, the blink of an eye. So in regards to that, the soul will what? It will go up. And in another narration we're about to mention, there will be a caller that will call out from above, which is another narration to prove Allah is above, which is another proof that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above the heavens, above the arsh, which we'll talk about in a minute. So based upon that, you'll find that this narration establishes very important points to our creed. Our creed, from that, is the belief in the life of the grave, also the angels. That there's different angels and they have different functions and they have affairs that they carry out for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From them is to remove the souls from the bodies, which is also from our belief from our belief is that we believe that every body has a ruh, that it has a soul. And that this hadith also establishes this fact, that it is removed from the body. And once it's removed from the body, the angel of death takes it, then you'll find that there are others who will take it. Which we'll talk about when we have more time. If we have more time, we'll talk about that and the meaning of that. So let's keep mentioning the other narration. So the first affair that is very scary, that the human will now embark upon seeing affairs that he never seen in his life. The angel of death coming to him and removing his soul from his body and taking it, and seeing his helpers, seeing those who aid him, alayhi salam, those who aid him in collecting the soul. So we have the Malakul Maut, and we has his A'wan. A'wan meaning helpers, those who aid him. So based upon that, you'll find that that's from the affair that we're establishing here, these important points. Number one is again what? Like we said, the angels descending. And when we say descension of the angels, that's also proof that Allah is what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above. That the angels descend from above to below, based upon the commands of our Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. In addition to that, like we mentioned, the soul, as we mentioned, is removed by the Malakul Maut, which also, like we mentioned from our Aqidah, is the belief in the angels. The other narrations, you'll find like when the body or when the soul's put back into it, after it's removed momentarily, then it is put in a state where now another form of angels will come. So now you have the angel of death coming, removing the soul, and in addition to now, affairs will take place where other angels will come. So those narrations, and what we'll mention now, فَيَأْتِيهِ مَلَكَانِ فَيُجْلِسَانِهِ فَيَقُولَانِ لَهُ مَنْ رَبُّكَ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّيَ اللَّهُ فَيَقُولَانِ لَهُ مَا دِينُكَ, to the end of the narration, as we know. You'll find that other angels will come. There will be two. This narration says they will sit him up. So you have two angels, and you'll find there are other narrations that will mention the details of how their appearances are, how they look, how their appearances are. فَيَقُولَانِ لَهُ, who's your Lord? He will say, my Lord is Allah. And keep in mind, as we said, in these type of narrations, the type of stability has to come directly from who, everyone? Has to come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they will say to him, what's your religion? What's your religion? And who's the man in which it was sent to you? And we'll mention the other narration and the other question, where is another fourth one, where it says, وَمَا عِلْمُكَ, what will give you knowledge of that? There's another narration that says, وَمَا يُدْرِيكَ, what will give you knowledge of this matter? These questions you ask, what substantiates it? The only thing that substantiates it is what we're doing right now. It's ilm. So they want to know, are you saying this based upon, even though they know, are you saying this based up? أتي محمد وسيد والفضيلة وضعت المقام المحمود لديه حتى السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. So, like we were mentioning, everyone, the fourth question of the grave, we'll read the narration establishing the fourth. But what is known amongst a lot of the Muslims is the three, not realizing that there's a fourth. And from the narrations, I'll read it in a minute, or read it once we mention this. That is the matter pertaining to ma ilmuka. What will give you knowledge of that? In another narration, wa ma yudirika. Wa ma yudirika. What gives you knowledge of this? What substantiates what you say? So the angels want to know, are you saying this based upon knowledge? Not just based upon just mere something you heard, or based upon blind following, or something that you just heard your grandmother inherit, or something you inherited from your grandmother or your grandfather is considered a form of taqleed. I just heard them say, they said it, so I'm just saying it. They want to know, even though, like we mentioned, that you're answering these questions based upon something that substantiates your claim, which is ilm. So that's the matter that is very important in regards to studying and gathering in these type of gatherings, in order to attain and acquire proper knowledge that will allow you to stand firm and be firm when these questions are asked. So based upon that, the angels, they'll say, of course, these three questions. That the mu'min, who Allah keeps firm, he will say, Rabbi Allah, my Lord is Allah. They will say, wa ma dinuka, what is your religion? He said, Dini al-Islam. My religion is Islam. Wa ma hadha al-rajal alladhi bu'itha fikum. Who is this man that was sent from amongst you, or sent within yourselves, meaning the human beings of this ummah? He will say, it is Rasulullah. Then they ask the fourth. They'll ask the fourth, which is, what will give you knowledge of this? وَمَا عِلْمُكَ فَيَقُولُ قَرَأْتُ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ فَآمَنْتُ بِهِ وَصَدَّقْتُ. Then he will reply, I read the book of Allah, meaning ilm. See? Notice the love, notice the wording, everyone. The wording that they said here, that I read the book of Allah and I understood it. And I believed in it. Amantu bihi wa saddaqtu. Then I also had firm certainty in it. What gives you firm certainty in an affair, everyone? Except knowledge. Nothing gives it based upon just mere emotions. That matter that gives you certainty is proper knowledge, proper facts. That's what gives an individual certainty in what he or she is upon. So based upon that, notice it says that love, and if you want to mention it again here, notice he will give an answer. I read the book of Allah and I believed in it. And I had certainty in it. So those words are clear indications that it has to be based upon what? It has to be based upon ilm. It cannot be based upon taqleed or asabiyah or asabiyat or fanaticism or blind fanaticism or blind following or something that you just heard from your forefathers. So you said it. The angels want to know you had time to study, you attained proper knowledge, and you're saying this based upon it. So those are the matters that one needs to analyze clearly, scrupularize this matter in order to establish the importance of ilm and to study and to take time out to learn these matters. So look at the result, as it says in the narration, فَيُنَادِي مُنَادٍ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ. There'll be a caller that will call out from above the heavens. That's another affair that establishes what? Allah is above. Because the love here of the wording establishes that it is Allah Himself. Because it will say, An sadaqa abdi. My servant spoke the truth. So abdi is referring back to who? My servant. To Allah. So notice that the call will call out from where? From above the heavens. Another affair in which you should use these narrations to establish that one has doubt concerning Allah, where He is. This is what you need to show him right here, or show her. Notice it says He'll call out from above. So the angels will descend from above, and there will be a caller that will call out from above. An sadaqa abdi. فَأَفْرِشُوهُ مِنَ الْجَنَّةِ وَأَلْبِسُوهُ مِنَ الْجَنَّةِ وَافْتَحُوا لَهُ بَابًا إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ. He said, spread out and give him the furush, meaning the comfortability of those comfortable, lavish sittings, and if you want to say, for lack of better words, furniture, which is not the affairs of what will be given to him, for lack of better words. It's accommodations. Accommodations of paradise, but the word from the word furush or afrishu is from the word furush. Similar to that is like firash. Like give him all those different types of comfortable pleasures. Those pleasures of paradise. And they say those complementaries. But actually said those from lack of better words and lack of better translation. And also give him the pleasantries of clothing from paradise also. And open the door for him to paradise. So based upon that, that's another narration that establishes key points in the Aqidah, which is number one, the affairs pertaining that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will keep his servant firm. Another affair that we establish from this narration is that there's just not 3 questions in the grave. It's 4. And a lot of people think it's 3, but in actuality it's 4. There's narrations that establishes there's 4. And this is from them. It says, after the angels finish asking him 3, they will say, what will give you knowledge of this? Ma ilmuka. What gives you knowledge? That's another question. After the 3 questions. And then, as we mentioned, the other fact that is established in this hadith, there'll be a caller that will call out from above, who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which also from our aqidah is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above the arsh. And like we mentioned, this also establishes the bliss of the grave. In the garden, from the gardens of bliss is in the grave. Because it says clearly, given those pleasantries of what will be given to him of comfort, of the comforts of paradise, and the clothes, from the clothes of bliss, of paradise, and open for him that door to paradise. So that's another narration, everyone, that establishes these key points in our belief that there will be a life in the grave, and that it will be an affair that is from the middle life, and that we believe in it firmly based upon these narrations. Another narration, as we'll mention, وَإِنَّ الْعَبْدَ الْكَافِرَ إِذَا كَانَ فِي انْقِطَاعٍ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا وَإِقْبَالٍ مِنَ الْآخِرَةِ نَزَلَ إِلَيْهِ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَلَائِكَةٌ سُودُ الْوُجُوهِ مَعَهُمُ الْمُسُوحِ فَيَجْلِسُونَ مِنْهُ مَدَّ الْبَصَرِ. To the end of the narration. Then the disbelieving servant, because he's still an abd, even though he doesn't realize it. That is when he's in the state of departing from this dunya and approaching the hereafter. Angels from the heavens will descend. So again, descension from the heavens is another clear fact that Allah is where? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above the heavens. And these type of angels that will descend upon her, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, is black faces. Sudul wujuh. Black faces, meaning these angels will be in a very horrific state towards that individual, to scare him or to scare her, to know that they're embarking upon something very terrible. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, within their graves, and similar to that, in the hereafter, in their final domain, or in their hereafter, and they settle appointed time in the hereafter. مَعَهُمُ الْمُسُوحِ. Then it will be with those angels with black faces, musuh, meaning those uncomfortable type of non-pleasantries. For now, like we said, those non-pleasantries, meaning they will be like rough in regards to what will be given to them and what they will have to be in, of either from the different types of uncomfort that will start in regards to what will now be those pleasantry furnitures, or what have you, will be something rough that will be upon now. And in addition to the type of clothes they will wear, well, that they will have or they will receive of those different types of punishments, with iyadu billah, which they will be given. May Allah give us refuge. So also they will sit to him as far as the eyes can see, meaning the angels. Then the angel death will come to him or her, and they will, similar to the first, they will sit in his head, and they will say, Ayyatuha nafsul khabitha, ukhruji ila sakhatin min Allahi wa ghadab. He said, oh wicked soul, oh wicked nafs, come out to the anger of Allah and his displeasure. So all these are narrations, like we mentioned, everyone, which is to show, like we mentioned, in regards to the establishment of the grave, and that there will also be a caller similar to the first narration. However, this call, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will belie the individual. I'll say kadaba, so that this individual has lied. Fafrishu lahu min an-nar, spread out for him those displeasures from the hellfire, and open for him the door to what? To hell. So those are the narrations, like we mentioned, everyone, that establishes this fact. And there's another narration that's very long. If we have more time, we will read it. But based upon that, like we said, these are all key points that we wanted to mention in regards to creed. The last thing, like we mentioned before we stop, these are all narrations, number one, from the Book of Allah, which is the Surah Ibrahim, and the authentic Sunnah, like authentic Sunnah of our Prophet ﷺ, clearly establishing this creed of ours pertaining to the life of the grave. And that those matters are the affairs of the unseen, and it's important upon the one to believe in it firmly and to not let the callers of the devil come and take you away from this belief, in order for you to be affected by the so-called rational thinkers or the intellectualists or aqlaniyin, of those who've been affected by the ideologies of the Mu'tazila, because they are the ones that only depend on rational explanations for everything. Oh, it does not have anything for any type of unseen influence. No, there's a rational explanation for everything. There's no malaika, there is no adhab, there is no punishment, there is no devils influence you to do evil. That's you. You're the one that's making yourself do evil, to the end of the nonsense. For those type of matters, everyone, are from the calls of the devil, in which day and night it's being utilized on the internet to take the human beings away from the correct call. And like we mentioned, the important affairs or benefits from these matters is that if a person firmly believes in it, he knows that he has to work diligent to be upright in his dunya. But if these matters are removed, what will be the incentive or the encouragement to do right if these affairs are not real? For right now, one says there is no life in the grave where I'm going to be rewarded or punished based upon what I did in this world. Nor is there any day of resurrection. All of that's not real. What would be the incentive for a person to be upright if you deny all these matters? The belief in Allah, belief there will be a punishment in the grave, or a bliss or a great reward for those who are upright, and in the hereafter, in the day of resurrection, where people will be held accountable. If you remove all those matters, what will be the so-called replacement is savagery. Because those who do not, if you find of those who live in lands that do not believe in Allah and they reject these matters, they live in a life where you'll find of savagery, not knowing why they were created, or you'll find that they are in a great state of depression, based upon the fact, like we said, that their creed is not correct. And like we said, as a result of it, they fall into these pitfalls, into these depths of darkness. So like we mentioned, like we said, those are the facts we wanted to establish in regards to this type of creed. So again, memorize Surah Ibrahim, everyone. And if one is able to memorize one of these narrations, they're very important. You will need it all the time. Especially if you want to now clarify to someone that's been affected by the ideologies of the Jahmiyyah or the Mu'tazila or the other deviant sects from the Asha'ira, you'll find there are Muslims out there to this very moment who believe Allah is everywhere. Do not believe that Allah is above. Rather, they make war and they'll even make takfir against you and say you're not Muslim if you believe Allah is above. And how these matters are the total opposite of what the Messenger of Allah taught the Ummah and what was the creed of the Sahaba. So that's the matter that we wanted to clarify. We'll stop here, inshallah. How much minutes was the Wow, time flies. Like I said, everyone, when the time or the hour goes back, we'll have plenty of time to do it after Isha because it'll still be, by the time the hour goes back, goes to Isha, and one's finished, praying Salat al Isha, will probably 6:50 or 7 o'clock. So it'll still be early when it goes back. So be able to try to do it now in a little bit more extensive or more detailed way in that time. But we'll suffice with this, inshallah. But there's a couple other things I wanted to mention, but we'll suffice with this, inshallah. Any questions about the lesson? تفضل. وصدقت وصدقت قرأت كتاب الله فآمنت به وصدقت. تفضل. I'm sorry. For in the ayat you'll find of the different types, we established the angel of death. We also affirmed that there are certain circumstances those angels are similar to the a'wan of the or malakul maut. That it could be for that, and it could be instances where other angels rip it out. So we say to both. That's an excellent question. Because there are ayats that also affirm that there will be angels that will what? Rip out the soul. Surah Al-Nazi'at and other ayat. Trying to think of the other ayat. There's a lot of them. There's a couple of them. الملائكة باسطوا أيديهم أخرجوا أنفسهم اليوم تجزون عذاب الهون بما كنتم تقولون على الله غير الحق وبما كنتم تستكبرون. That's the ayah, exactly. But you'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He mentioned in His book that He said, hence when you see the angels spread out their hands, باسطوا أيديهم أخرجوا أنفسكم اليوم تجزون عذاب الهون بما كنتم تقولون على الله غير الحق وبما كنتم عن آياته تستكبرون. That ayah. So that ayah now brings that there are a group of angels that will come and remove a soul and rip it out. So we say here in this instance, but actually this also establishes this also. At any rate, the danger of death removes it, and there will be certain instances where angels will rip it out, and other instances with other people. So we affirm this and we affirm that, both. So there's no difference to say it was just the angel of death. It could be from his a'wan, from his helpers, that in certain instances they'll be sent in order to rip out the soul of others. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. May Allah grant us in you refuge. So those are ayahs that mentions that. We'll talk about that. That's a good question. I said, Fadl Umar. In regards to the fusaq, the sinners, excellent question. You'll find that the fusaq, that they say, and Allah knows best, that if they get it wrong, based upon the fact that the reward will be given for the person who answers it right, but the person that doesn't die in that sound state, that individual will get it wrong. But however, their punishment will only last for a certain time. We also mentioned the different uh, circumstances for each believer who dies in a state of sin, and may Allah give us protection from dying in a state of sin also. Because we mentioned and said it could be punishment in the grave, and then it'll be for a moment in time, and then it'll what? Or it could be the time that they're in the grave, totally. And then Allah will forgive them in the hereafter. So all the different states of the people who died in a state of sin, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, they did not make proper tawbah before they died. But based upon what is zahir, Umar, it's a good question, is that they will get those questions wrong. And their feet they will slip, and then they will be punished. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. Then, like we said, if they're from the people from Ahl Islam, and their bid'ah did not remove them from the fold of Islam, or the affairs pertaining to the sinners, then it will just be upon them temporarily. Or it will be a means for their purification throughout the life of the grave, and then they'll be purified in the next life, meaning the day of resurrection. Any other question about the lesson, anyone? I would say saddaqtu here it's like saying I had certainty of it. Saddaqtu, like I had the knowledge of it, and I had affirmation. I had firmness of what I believed in. So based upon that, that clearly shows that I had to be upon ilm. So a person reading the book of Allah, believing in it, and then having something that gave them that firmness, which is ilm. So anything based upon taqleed or asabiyah doesn't give you certainty. It doesn't. The only thing that gives you certainty is what? It's knowledge. The only thing that gives an individual yaqeen, or that type of firmness, or that type of, like we said, certainty, or that assurance, that fear only comes from knowledge. So that's the meaning of saddaqtu here. Even though saddaqtu can also mean amantu, it can mean believed. But here, notice in the context, both was mentioned. So I believed in it, I have the i'tiqad, but I had something that gave me certainty of it, which is ilm. So in that instance, it puts like emphasis on the affair of knowledge and its importance. Absolutely. Anything, Tafadal? Absolutely. Absolutely. Person that has doubt, absolutely. Mal'iyadu billah, shak, absolutely. But we gotta stop. We gotta stop. Anything else, anyone? Anything? طيب, we'll stop here. لعلنا نكتفي بهذا القدر. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.